utilize a full keyboard, and they're all going to actually utilize the numeric keypad. What you're basically missing on your laptop is you're missing this whole section off to the side here. So basically everything that you would utilize on your right-hand side, you guys don't have. It's not on your laptop. And all of these other major DAWs, Sibelius, Logic, Cubase, Nuendo, Pro Tools, they all utilize the numeric keypads along with quick keys. So while we don't grade you on whether you use these quick keys, there will be some really basic ones that you will want to know, and we'll point those out as we go throughout. And in fact, any of the really basic ones that we were going to require of you, you will actually have a method to do on your keyboard. For instance, if I had to just give you an example, the two main windows in Pro Tools are what? I'm throwing this out as a question to you guys. What are the two main windows inside of Pro Tools? Mix and edit. Excellent. Yeah. So the quick key, and some of you guys probably already know this because you've used Pro Tools in the past, and it's a real simple basic quick key. What is a quick key to toggle back and forth between these two main windows? Command and equals. Yeah, and you guys can actually do that on your laptop. So there you can see, I mean, there's two majorly different windows, your mix window and then your edit, or what Logic would have called your arrange window. And these are basically the two main windows you guys are going to be using inside of Pro Tools. So yeah, that's probably a quick key you're going to want to know and want to use because you're going to want to be able to toggle back and forth between your two main windows. Since there are only two main windows inside of this DAW, knowing that quick key is probably going to save you a lot of time in working with Pro Tools. So I talked briefly about the keyboard. I actually want to go and show you guys a couple images real quick. Like, for instance, if we were to go and actually toggle this here, so we'll say Mac keyboard. And let's take a look under Google Images. And the reason I want to show you this is there's a keyboard I don't want you to buy because it actually eliminates what we're actually trying to get you guys to use. If you look here, this little guy that let's go back. Sorry. Okay. Here's the keyboard that I'm actually mentioning that has the numeric keyboard off to the right-hand side. My internet's going to appear to be a little bit slower, and it's simply because I'm streaming. Oops. Nothing on that site. Let's try it again. Okay. Here's your full Mac keyboard. Now you'll notice your laptop basically has this center section right here. That's everything your laptop has. But what it doesn't have is this section off to your right-hand side. And these keys in particular are called your numeric keys. You're going to want these keys. These keys are going to be important for you in basically any audio production environment. I don't care if you're using video or audio. Those keys are going to get used depending on what DAW you're using, or even also video editing suites utilize these quick keys as well. So while this is the keyboard I want you to take a look at, there's also a couple other options for you, one of which I don't want you to use, and some others that you may want to consider. You also have the older school. Take a look at this. This is basically the same keyboard, but you'll notice this is kind of an older model. You'll notice the keys are raised. It's not streamlined and nice aluminum brushed. So this is an older model Mac keyboard, and this will work just fine as well. These you'll generally find a little bit cheaper also, and it's just the fact that they don't match the look of your actual Mac. In other words, see that it's plastic and it doesn't have that nice brushed aluminum, but it's going to work just fine. Now, what I don't want you to go out and buy is basically this, because this is basically what you already have on your Mac laptop, and the only thing that this is really going to give you is it's going to give you Bluetooth, but it still doesn't give you the numeric keypads. So it's not going to help you out in this instance. So please refrain from going out and buying this. This is not what we want you to go and get yourself into. You'll be really annoyed at the fact that you'll be missing out on the experience of what we're actually mentioning here. And that's the numeric keys. You want those numeric keys. Another quick older image of the older Mac laptop keyboard, only because you can actually see the difference. You can see the difference here in this image. This image actually shows you the Bluetooth model, but it gives you that brushed aluminum. This one does not have the numeric keypads, so you want to stay away from it. But here is the raised letters. Where did it go? I know I just saw it. Give me one moment. Well, here's part of the image. How about this? This will speed up my search. Well, there it is right there. Now, while this will do the exact same thing, it's not as pretty, not as elegant, but it'll work just fine. You notice the letters are raised. They're not as thin and streamlined, and of course it doesn't have that brushed aluminum look. So keep that in mind. I really highly recommend you go pick one of these up. If you don't have the money for it and you can't do it for this course, that's totally fine. You're not going to be penalized in any way if you don't actually have a full keyboard with the numeric keys. I'm just trying to give you some suggestions for things that are going to help your life out for this course and your future courses. From here on out, you're going to find that a lot of your courses are going to deal with Pro Tools. You'll have at least 3 other courses that deal with Pro Tools. So getting to know Pro Tools really well is going to be important for you in this degree program. Let me just take a moment and see if there are any questions on the message board that I haven't gotten to yet. So let's take a look here. And by the way, guys, with your questions, there's a couple questions here about the cost. I'll tell you what, let's go and Google it. Let's put in all the, let's do good old eBay. Now, in eBay, if you log into your account, you have this thing called advanced search off to the side. This will help out to actually see what things are going for. So if you just type in here Mac keyboard, Mac key, and then if you look under completed listings, this will kind of let you know what they're kind of going for currently. And of course, they're going to give us a bunch of accessories as well. Let's see if I can find one of these models real quick. Ooh, there's an ancient model. Oh, you don't want to buy that one. Notice that this model here is missing numeric keys. You don't want to use that. This one is as well. That's going to be the Bluetooth model we were just talking about. Here again, it's the wireless Bluetooth. You don't want to buy that. Not what we're looking for. This is a bunch of accessories that go along with the Mac Mini, but this shows basically the numeric keypad that we were just mentioning. And of course, it's to go with the Mac Mini. I tell you what, we're looking at completed listings. Let me just skim down and see what else I can find real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to impress to you that you really should at some point go and purchase one of these keyboards. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but let's just see if we can find one real quick. It's been sold recently. Wow, no completed listings. Let's take completed listings out of our search and see what we come up with. All right, here's one that's sold along with the mouse. Again, it's a mouse that I don't prefer because you have to move your hand around. It doesn't have a trackball to it. But you can see that there is, that's an old school. That's like the older Mac keyboard. I bet you could find it even cheaper if it didn't have the mouse itself. So keep that in mind. You want to pick up this keyboard. Let's take a look here if we see if we can find one of the newer models. Ooh, here's an InLogic that is wireless as well. Now, this one's $50, but hey, knock your socks off. I'd love to have a wireless keyboard. It wouldn't benefit me a whole bunch because I typically sit right close to my Mac anyways. Here's the older model that we're talking about with the raised letters, $25. I think that's still on the high end. I think you could probably find it for $15. Again, we'll just have to do a bit of a vigorous search here. Here is that newer model, the brushed aluminum look. It kind of matches your laptop. Looks a little sleeker. I think it's a little bit more, little flashier, a little nicer. But yeah, you can get into that guy right there for $20. And so you get the idea. At some point, you're going to want to pick up a keyboard and a mouse. You don't have to have it for this course. I just highly recommend it. But I'll leave that up to you guys. Let me do a quick skim. Just keep in mind, guys, whenever you guys use the chat window, you guys are using the same exact chat window that I use. So typically, you'll notice if there's more than a couple chats that pop up real quick, it's going to scroll off to where I can't see it. And so I'm going to just see if I can dig back real quick and see if I can find some of your questions. Charles Yates had a really good question. He asked me about the colored keyboard. There is actually a Pro Tools keyboard that is colored. So let me actually take a look and show you what we're talking about. Pro Tools keyboard. Notice there's a cover. There's also like a full-blown keyboard. Here, if you look, you'll actually find that there are covers for your laptop, but the covers for your laptop still don't cover the numeric keypads. For instance, notice this is a set of stickers that you just put right onto your keyboard. Or actually, maybe is this? No, this is actually a silkscreen printed keyboard. So this is probably going to be kind of a little bit of money. I'm going to be honest with you, Charles. That's not the way I learned my quick keys. So I've found that some of my other buddies that have utilized these colored keys, they've told me, you know what? Once you learn them, the colors really don't aid you that much. So I would tell you that, for the extra cost, I wouldn't worry about it. You're going to find that you're going to get addicted to the same quick keys because you're using them constantly as you go throughout using Pro Tools. So I don't know that really having the colored keys is really going to benefit you that much. Let me go back and see if I can find a couple of these questions here. Sorry, I'm just reading some of your questions. Okay, Kathy had a really good question about downloading the videos that we have in our reading assignments because she would like to actually save them to her computer. So let me show you what I use for that. And I'm not really even sure if this is a legitimate product, so just be wary. I'm not really totally sure about this. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys here. It's called, this little guy here is what I've been using. It's called MacX YouTube Downloader. So if we want to Google that, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and we'll Google that real quick. So we'll find this for you. We'll give you a link. But basically, this is a way that you can download anything from YouTube. Again, I'm really not sure about the legitimacy of this. In other words, I'm not sure if this is, I don't think it's pirated ware because it's free. But at the same time, I'm not sure about the logistics of downloading other people's materials from YouTube. So while these are great for scholastic uses, I'm sure they can be used for other uses as well. But I don't know about the legal legitimacy of that. But this little app that I just sent you will allow you to download any video from YouTube. So that's a really good question. Now, I apologize if for any reason I missed some of your questions, guys. Understand that I'm dealing again with the same chat window you guys are. So if I miss your question, please don't feel offended. I will, at the end of our class session, hold a question and answer. So typically you're going to find that I kind of go quick throughout our lessons here, and we're going to move along pretty quickly here in a bit as well. And for that reason, I am recording our session, and they will be archived. So you'll be able to have this archived. The archives, it typically takes me about 24 hours. There's 2 different rendering processes I have to do to these videos before I can post them up. So you may find that the videos will not be listed under your announcement section for at least probably another 24 hours. Sometimes I can get them up a little bit quicker. It just depends on my other workload duties throughout the day, but there's quite a bit of rendering I have to do before I can even get it up to YouTube. So just be aware of that. Ricky's asking about track height. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. So good questions. Do me a favor, in the event that I've missed any of your questions, please don't be upset. I promise you I will have a question and answer session towards the end of our lesson today, and I'll be able to get to all your questions. So I'm not avoiding you intentionally, and obviously you guys know that. It's just, trying to facilitate class and manage Pro Tools and watch a chat window at the same time. It's difficult to do both. So I will make sure I do answer your questions, though. So with that said, I want to welcome you guys to Audio Production Techniques. I'm really excited to have you guys. What are we doing here tonight? What is this all about? Well, what we're doing tonight is I want to get you guys started with your final project. I know here we are in week 2, and you're like, wait a minute, this is kind of early to be starting a final project. And yeah, that's what a lot of people think until you see all the work that's going to go into what it is that we're going to be doing this month. We're going to be taking you guys through a complete remix from the ground up. So I want to get you started tonight and show you exactly how we're going to do this. First of all, I want to direct you to a website called Indaba Music. Let's get back to the home page here, and I'll actually send you guys this link. I want you guys to visit Indaba this evening, and I want you to create a free account. So what does Indaba give you? Well, Indaba is basically, I think it was initially set up to be somewhat of a social media networking type environment, but really what it's kind of turned out to be is more of a remix community. So right about now, somebody's probably itching their head saying, well, what's a remix? What is this stuff called remix? Now, a remix typically is going to be a song, maybe a pop song you've heard on the radio, and then you decide you're going to go out with your friends and you go downtown and you're in a big fancy nightclub and you hear a version of that song that has been beefed up for a different market. It sounds a little bit boomier. It's more of a club atmosphere, but it has the same vocal from that same popular song. I'm sure we'll hear the likes of Justin Timberlake songs being remixed in this fashion if they're not already. I haven't actually been downtown in a top 40 club in quite a while. Um, so, what is a remix? A remix is basically a song that takes the original assets, but then actually changes it up and beefs it up to actually be targeted for a different market. So, in the case of a pop song to reach a different market, especially a nightclub market, it might not work very well in a nightclub. So, they'll have to actually beef up the song and make it either houseier or more hip hop or whatever it is they're shooting for as far as a different target market. So we're going to have you guys be doing the same thing. In fact, if I give you guys a quick synopsis of where I come from, just so you guys have a little bit of a background about me, remixing is a big part of what I do. Um, let's see. My first instrument I ever played, actually before instruments, I was raised in a musical family, and I was very, very fortunate. My father, George Berry, played with Nat King Cole, Wayne Newton, Kenny Rogers, Willie Nelson, a host of like really well-known artists. And he was also a session musician, and he was a traveling musician on his own with his own band as well. So I got to, as a kid, go and watch my father perform on stage, and I thought it was really cool because I got to stay up past my bedtime, and I was in an adult environment drinking Shirley Temples. For those of you that don't know what a Shirley Temple is, it's a non-alcoholic drink, so no alcohol involved as a kid. It's basically grenadine and Sprite or 7 Up with a cherry. And there you have it. So I got to watch my dad perform at a young age. I took up the clarinet in the 6th grade, and I didn't really like the clarinet very much. I didn't think it was cool enough for me, and I put the clarinet away, and I really kind of fell away from music for quite a while. I didn't get back into music until right about I was graduating high school, and I took up DJing, and I started getting some response from local clubs, and ended up having some club residencies where I'd play there once a week in lots of different spots in the Central Florida area. So in that process of playing other people's dance records, I had plenty of time sitting behind the decks playing other people's music to wonder what it was that was making these sounds that I was hearing. Of course, I was influenced at a young age by bands like Duran Duran and Devo and the Cars, which all use synthesizers. So I went out and started researching analog synthesizers. Before you knew it, I had amassed a really large studio because I'd gone out and taken all my earnings from DJing and bought the pieces of gear that I knew that other artists were using and started trying to create my own compositions. So in this whole process, one of my buddies was the manager at WEG, which is Right Entertainment Group. Right Entertainment Group is basically responsible for Britney Spears, NSYNC, Justin Timberlake. In fact, Justin Timberlake and Britney are still managed by WEG, which is Johnny Wright, Right Entertainment Group. And so their compound is located here in Orlando, and a buddy of mine was managing their facility. And while they had a large console, and of course they had Pro Tools, they didn't have a lot of synths. And my buddy, seeing that I had amassed all these synthesizers, wanted to do a project out of my place. So we did a project by the name of Boys and Girls United. And that was my very first top 40 dance charted single, and really helped push me and realize, hey, there's actually money to be made in this whole remixing market. So that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do here today. So here's Indaba Music. And why did I bring you here? Because Indaba is going to give you current artist files and allow you to download their files. So once you've navigated to Indaba Music and you want to create a free account, there is an option to pay for an account. And the paid option basically gives you any of their artist files, and you can download all of them. With your free account, which is the only one that I want you guys to concern yourself with that free account, you'll have 3 different artists that you can choose from. So I want you to choose really wisely before selecting an artist, because once you use up one of those opportunities, it goes away. So they call the opportunities 3 free keys. So the key unlocks the opportunity. So what you would want to do is you want to navigate up to the opportunities page, which you see me doing here. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to just pop off the camera here. We don't need to see me anymore. You've seen my ugly mug enough. All right, cool. So here we're at the opportunities section. And if we look down, here's the banner up top, which will scroll across all the current opportunities. But I like to jog down here to the middle. Anything that you see here that says submit, these are all open right now for you to utilize. Now, this first one that you see me hovering over, notice it says mix. So I don't want you to use this because you can't remix it. They basically are asking you just to mix the files. I want you to remix. So you want to use this artist here. And if we scroll over these other guys, notice we don't want to use that one. So that says submit original. You're going to be doing a remix. We're going to show you how to do a remix this month. You don't want to use that one. This one again says submit your original. So I don't want you to use this one. And again, here is another asking you to help your members make money by using placements. So right now, there's not a lot going on with Indaba. There's not a lot of files for you to choose from. If you were to want to take a look at an artist before choosing the artist, let's just show you how to do that. Select the artist. Now here, what you want to do is you want to listen to the artist before you actually decide to choose the artist. So let's go ahead and listen to the original. Let's see if we can find the original. It looks like they've got the video here on YouTube, so it looks like we're going to be watching a quick video from YouTube to listen to the original. Now, it doesn't look like I'm getting any audio coming from YouTube, so here we go. Back to the biz, no key. Look at my new shit like ODs. Need shades on to see the rollie. Drive slow like the car on codeine. Who cares about the nigga before me? I knew a friend that knew a friend that introduced us to Brooklyn. Yeah. She danced to the rhythm. I danced in my wrist film. She wants me to stay. But what did you want me to say? She talk about the money. I talk about my dreams. And that body is crazy. Well, what did you want me to say? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? All the games that we play. We can plan a remix to make the seats that you got your own evil. Alright, so we get the gist of the song. The song is a hip-hop track. Now, the reason, again, you want to audition the song before you choose the artist is that you want to make sure this is an artist that you want to work on the song. If it's not in a genre that you feel comfortable with, then you probably don't want to choose this artist. Remember, you're going to be dealing with this artist for the next 3 weeks. So in the real world, you won't get to choose who your clients are. Your clients will come to you, and whether you like country or not, you're probably going to end up working on country unless you turn down the client and turn down the money. So in this case, you get to choose who you want. So since we have the original file here to listen to, this gives you an idea whether you want to actually use the files or not. So being that there's not very many artists for you to choose from underneath the opportunities, right now there's currently only one. This artist here, Dewan, Games That We Play. Since there's not many artists for you to choose from, I'd like to show you a second avenue that we haven't really been utilizing very much in months past, but I've noticed that there are a lot of good remix opportunities here underneath this thing called Beatport Play. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the link to this as well. There you go. I've copied and pasted that link into the chat window, so you guys will have that. Now notice here there are multiple artists here, so I'm going to go to the section off to the right-hand side where it says View All, because there's a lot of different artists here for us to pick out. So this will allow us to see all the different artists that are available for remixing. So currently right here, there's 4 different artists. So if we actually wanted to listen to them, we'll go ahead and select the artist. Notice here it has the original track, so if we want to listen to this before downloading the stems, I don't think there's any limit on how many of these stems you can download. So I think you can download as many as you want, but let's go ahead and just give it a quick listen. Okay, cool. Sounds like a bit of a house banger. Most of the tracks on this site are all going to be somewhat more underground house music. Let's take a look at Riva Starr. right, you get the idea. You can audition the actual artists themselves. I'm not really happy with any of these so far. Let me just keep moving down here. Hopefully one of these last two guys will be a little bit more mellow. Let's take a listen. All right, cool. I actually don't mind that. A little bit more mellowed, not as ravey and in your face. Notice here we have download all these parts, or you could actually download individual parts. I'm going to go ahead and download all the parts for right now. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So download all parts. Oh, and of course I need to be logged in, so maybe I should log myself in. So you'll have to create your own account. Okay, and you can see those parts are now downloading in the background. There's my download manager showing me that those parts are downloading. So once those are downloaded, we can come back to those in a moment. Let's take a look and see what this other last artist was like. One last artist I didn't get a chance to listen to. Let's take a listen. A good question. Gregory's asking, when we remix, are we creating brand new beats? Absolutely. In fact, what you're going to see here is we're going to keep basically the vocals, and we're going to ditch everything else and create everything else from our own. Now, I am actually going to use some of their parts for scratch tracks, like their bass line. I'm going to follow their bass line with basically just repeating it via MIDI notes, and then that way I can apply any bass sound I want to it whatsoever. But we'll see that here in a moment. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the song. Okay, not my cup of tea, just a little bit too ravey. I typically like stuff that's a little bit more down tempo. There's a really good question here. Ricky's asking, can they use stuff from the Indaba archive? Let me take a quick look at the Indaba archive and see what is available there. Now, I'm just taking a moment here because, quite honestly, this is the first time I've seen this archive, and this would be really cool because there are some really cool files, even files that I neglected to get. In fact, at one point, one of Christina Aguilera's songs were on here, so that would be really cool. I don't know how far back these archives go. Let me just try one of these artists and see if it'll actually allow me to download these files. Typically, the archives, I believe that the archives themselves are... They're basically just letting you see the winners. I don't think there's a way for you to download the files from here. So, Ricky, have you been able to actually download the individual files? Because I think they just give you the winners. I think that's all the archives are, is really just showing you who won from previous contests. Have you ever been able to download the files from here? Yeah, I'm just trying to see the files, and I don't see a way for you to actually download those original files. So typically when the contest ends, the files close out and you're not able to get to them. And I think that's still the case here. I think just the archives themselves are just basically letting you see who the winners were. That way, let's say that you were to win the contest. It would just allow you to say, hey, look, take a look. If you're trying to sell yourself to another artist, here's a contest that I won. And it would just basically be a feather in your cap kind of deal. I don't believe you're able to get the files from here. So good questions. Unfortunately, that would be awesome if you're able to go back and get older files from old sessions from years past, because there's been a lot of really good artists they've had up here. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like this is an option for you. Okay, another good question. Guy's asking, hey, are we looking to submit these to the contest? That's totally up to you. For the purposes of the class, I don't really care if you submit the files for the submission of the contest or not. We're only just getting these files so we have files to work with inside of Pro Tools. Let's take a look and see where my download process is at. Let's stop one of these so I don't have two things downloading. Cool, so this will be downloading in a couple minutes, and we'll be able to pull those over into Pro Tools. So while that's downloading, question here, is there a required DAW to use? Yeah, everything you're using this month, you're using Pro Tools and Pro Tools only. Nothing else can be used except for Pro Tools. I know you guys are really digging Logic, and I love Logic. I know that Logic was used heavily in your last class with Dave, and Dave does a great job of showing you guys how to get in and out throughout Logic. This month, basically, you're going to abandon Logic entirely, and you'll be doing everything inside of Pro Tools. It's going to be important that I teach you guys Pro Tools. It'll be great if you know how to use Logic, but that's not going to help you guys in the music industry if you show up to work and you've been trained to drive a a biplane, and here you're using a fighter jet that you know none of the controls to. So that's my job for the month, is to make sure you guys know how to run Pro Tools. I want to make sure that I send you guys out in the workforce and that you guys are competent in sitting down in any situation and manning Pro Tools and saying, that's all right, I got it, we can do this, let's go. And that's my job. I need to make you comfortable and be able to sit down in the chair and take it from start to finish inside of Pro Tools. How about some other questions while these files are downloading? Todd says, can you use Logic and mix in Pro Tools? Absolutely not. Nope. This month is all about Pro Tools. Abandon Logic or anything else that you're familiar with. You're now in Pro Tools. You're in the Army now. Yeah. So, I know it's going to feel like a burn and a little bit of a sting to have to let go of a comfort zone, but that's the idea. You're going to have to get yourself immersed inside of Pro Tools. It's the way it's going to be this month. So that being said, let's jump over into yeah. Somebody mentioned my hair. Yeah, same guy, just a little bit different hair color. Coolio. Enough about the hair. Let's get over into Pro Tools. We'll wait for our download to finish. Looks like we're almost done there. So once these files are done downloading, I'm going to need to go get those files, and then we're going to need to use those files in Pro Tools. So we'll wait for those to get there. But while we're there, let's go ahead and just talk about Pro Tools real quickly. All right, so by now you guys are already familiar that we're now looking at the edit window. Off to our right-hand side, we're looking at our clips list. You can show and hide the clips list, or you might have the regions list if you're on an older version of Pro Tools. It's the same thing. They work exactly the same. There's a small arrow at the bottom right-hand corner if you want to show or hide this list. Coolio. Off to the bottom left-hand side, same thing. Off to the left-hand side, you have your tracks list, and you can resize that tracks list. Just grab it. I usually keep mine kind of small. I just need to see the names of the tracks. The tracks list allows you to show and hide tracks. Now, even though the tracks are hidden, they can still be played back. Let's just say that you want to see only a specific track. Well, you might want to hide all tracks. If I hold down Option and go to hide one, it'll hide all, and then I can pick a specific track. Like there's my kick track. I can zoom in and look at my kick track. So now that I've got one track, actually, let's show all tracks again and show you how to resize tracks as well. Okay, you guys are watching me use a quick key to size tracks, but if you take a look at an individual track, you can go in between a track and just click and grab, and that'll allow you to resize tracks. You'll see it's kind of a little like a half hash mark, so that'll allow you to resize those tracks. If you're trying to hide tracks, again, that's off to your tracks menu here. You can just hide the tracks. Notice I can just click and drag. Or if I hold down Option and I click on one to hide one, it'll do the same thing to all. That way, if I want to look at one specific track, I can click on that track. Now, you guys saw me grabbing the little half hash mark to resize a track. That's one way of resizing a track. Let me show all tracks again. You can also hold down Control and Option and use your up and down arrows. That will resize all tracks to be the same track height. So just showing you different ways of resizing tracks. You can also go to the very inside of a track, or what we call a track will also be called a playlist. And you see if you go into this little gray area here and you click, you can also resize the track that way as well. Just notice my tracks are all resizing. Cool. Now notice I've made some of these micro. I'll make this one here, we'll make that one large. You can see these guys are still micro. If you want to make all tracks the very same size, if you hold down Option before going into this little gray area, then whenever you choose, now I've chosen Option, Option will make them all the exact same height. I'm going to get rid of my camera here so you guys can get a little bit more real estate with Pro Tools. Okay. Question by Derek. For the remix, do we need to use the website you provided? I would like for you to use Indaba. However, since you notice Indaba really only had one remix opportunity, that's why I showed you guys Beatport Play. So no, you don't have to use the website that I steered you towards. I do recommend that you use a dance track of some sort because that way the files will be quantized. Many times if you're going to use a rock track, you're going to find that the files are not going to link up. So since we're talking about getting files into Pro Tools, it's about time we do that now. So let's go ahead and shut this session down. Let's create a brand new session. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hide some details as well. I'm going to hide Pro Tools. I'm going to hide Safari for right now. We'll get rid of my applications folder. Let's take a look at my downloads. Now, down over here in my downloads, we're going to open up my downloads. I'm going to grab those files. Here is the Beatport files that we were just dealing with. So here are the Beatport remix. And here you see you've got the stems. Wow, interesting. There are two sets of stems in here. One says project, one says stems. Okay, it looks like they gave us the project here is done in Ableton. So if you have Ableton, which we're not using this month, but if you had Ableton, there it gives you the actual files. Notice how many stems they gave us. This is going to be really cool when we open this up in Pro Tools. And hopefully these are full-blown stems. We're going to find out here in a second. So we'll see how these things work out. So let's go ahead and show you what I do with these files. Now, since I have the files here, what I want to do is I want to show you how I keep my organized files. In my music folder, I have an artist remix files. That's where I'm going to drop these in. Anytime I create a Pro Tools session, I put it in my Pro Tools folder here. So let's start off by putting these files in my artist remix files. Cool, you can see I've got several different files here. I actually had to clear some out. Here are those Christina Aguilera files I was telling you guys about. But here are the Beatport. So I'm going to color this just to make it a little bit easier for me to see. It'll just help my eye direct back to this folder when we go to import it. And these are really the files that we're going to be dealing with. So the song was, the artist was Russ Yolop, and the song was Journey. I'm going to copy that information because when I create my Pro Tools session here in a second, we're going to end up using that information. So now I know where the files are at, so I know where to get them. Let's go back over to Pro Tools and let's create a session. When I create the session, I'm going to save it here in my Pro Tools sessions folder. Here you can see I have Pro Tools sessions from years past and recent as well. So that's where we're going to save that information. So let's go ahead and create a brand new Pro Tools session. Command N gives us a new session dialog. Here's where you're going to choose your session's file type. We'll use broadcast wave. I'm going to choose 24-bit. And for my sample rate, we'll choose 44.1. Now, when it asks me where I want to save it, here's where I'm going to point it back to my music folder, inside of the Pro Tools folder, and here's where I'll apply the name. So the song is called Journey, and it's by that gentleman, Russ. So notice there's some spaces that we want to put in here to make it look nice and pretty. So there we go, Journey by Russ Yolop. Let's go ahead and save this. And then let's go import his files into the session. Right now, currently, you can see my session's empty. I don't have any tracks in here. Shift-Command-I will give us our import. You guys learned this in last week's lesson. We'll go to the Artist Remix folder. Here's that Beatport folder. And here's where we're going to find the files. I'll go ahead and select the top file. We'll scroll down and hold Shift and select the bottom file. Basically, I just selected all of the files. Now, here I've got the option here to add files or I want to copy files. I don't want to add the files, and I'll tell you why. If I add the files, it leaves them in its original location so that Pro Tools basically utilizes the original files. I actually want to create a copy of these files. That way, if I unintentionally do some destructive process inside of Pro Tools, it doesn't matter. I'm using a copy, not the original files, and so I can actually go get the original file if I need it. Let's choose copy. Now, when I choose done, it's going to ask me where I want it to store the files. It already defaults back to the Pro Tools session we're using in the audio files folder, so you don't really have to do anything here. You just go ahead and tell it to open. But once it actually processes these files, it's probably upsampling these files from 16-bit to 24-bit, so that's why it's taking a little while, and you're seeing it say that it's processing the audio. Now, upsampling is not really going to improve the sound quality of the files. It's simply going to make the files match the session file type that we chose in the new session dialog that you guys saw just a moment ago. So while it's upsampling, that doesn't make the sound quality any better. It just basically makes them a compatible file format that Pro Tools can use. Joseph, looks like you're having an issue with Pro Tools. Not a big deal. It's probably not the forum right now to do this. Hey, hook up with me after class, and we'll see what's going on with your setup. Typically, what I'll try and do, I can't do it after every single night. Sometimes I have other studio session engagements. But what I'll try to do this evening is I'll go ahead and I'll open up my iChat at the end of our session, and I'll try to just help you guys out if you're having any kind of issues. That way we can get you guys off to a good start. Okay, now it's done processing all the files and saying to me, hey, where do you want to put these files? We could put them over in just the clips list, but we want to put them into a new track because we're getting started. So let's go ahead and say new track. And there we go. You'll see that the actual waveform will get rendered here in a moment. We'll start rendering in the waveform. And right away, I'm seeing something that I don't like to see, and that is that all the files are different sizes. That means they didn't give us full-blown stems. We'll find out here in a second. You can see some of the files are already getting their waveforms rendered. Others are still getting rendered. All right, now I'm going to have to warn you, this is not going to be pretty just to start off with, because this is sometimes the way an artist will actually send you their files. And what am I scared about? I'm scared because right now I don't know where these pieces parts go. In other words, there's smaller parts here and there are larger parts. I can tell at some point these large files here, these are all the original files because they have the same length. Notice here, they're all 6 minutes and 21 seconds. That lets me know that these files are the original files, but now these other files, I don't know where exactly, what position they go in the song. If I was doing a true remix where I really cared about this and I was going to be sending this to the artist, I would actually find a way of getting the original. Whether I went and paid for it via Beatport or iTunes or wherever, I would go find the original song and I would import it to a track at the top and use that as a guide track. That way I could listen in to where these parts actually landed and figure out, figure out where they actually go in the song. Pardon me, guys, starting to lose my voice here. So since I don't have that, we're actually going to have to audition this and just listen to it. But what I want to do to make this a little bit easier on all of us playing along at home is any of the files that have the same length, I'm just simply going to grab that track and move that to the top. And we're going to listen to those files and mute out anything else that has a different file length. It's basically going to give me an idea of what the song sounded like. We listened to part of it a minute ago, but that doesn't mean that this is going to sound exactly like it because these stems are not all the same length. And that is going to give us some problems, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. And by the way, this is typical to actually get files that don't all match. It's not uncommon for this to happen. So you just have to work with what you got. We'll grab these tracks, pull them to the top. All right. So I see I've got multiple files here that all look like they're about the same length. So I'm thinking pretty much anything from here to here. I flip around in my mix window. Any of these little buddies here that I've highlighted in their track, that these are all probably going to have the same length, so we could probably listen to these and get away with hearing, pardon me, what the song sounds like. So we'll go ahead and take a listen to this now. very boring intro. I'm going to skip along here and see if we can find the meat of the song. All right, typical house track. It just kind of plugs along. So what can I take away from this to where I can actually get started? Well, for me to even start working with this song, what is one of the very first things I'm going to have to figure out about this song? I'm throwing this out to you guys as a question to the class. What do I need to find out? It's the first thing I need to find out about this song. Yeah, excellent. Tempo, tempo, tempo. Absolutely. Let me show you why. Well, let's get rid of all these tracks. Pardon me, for right now. Geez, guys, I'm not sure why I'm losing my voice like this. This is not typical. I'm going to hide these tracks for right now. We're just going to say, hey, guys, let's just get out of my view. In fact, I'm going to hide them and make them inactive. The only reason I'm getting rid of those for right now, we may utilize those tracks at another time. Notice that any tracks that are inactive tracks, I'm going to re-show you these tracks. Notice they're going to be grayed out, and any of the naming, the letters will be italicized. So anytime you see gray tracks like that lets you know those tracks are they're no longer in use in Pro Tools. They are inactivated tracks. I can reactivate them in a moment if I wanted to, but I'm simply inactivating them because of the files. On those tracks, those were the tracks that none of their files matched. So since none of those files match, I'm going to worry about where they go later. Typically what I'm going to need to figure out where the vocals are in this track. And because we're definitely going to have to work with the vocals. I want to work with the vocals because the vocals are going to be the mainstay of how we build this track. So for right now, I'm just going to deal with the tracks that I know what they are. So let's go ahead and we'll hide these tracks again. So we'll just say hide. And here's another little trick I'm going to do. If I hold Shift and Option when I go to hide this track, Shift and Option will clutch the tracks, and that way we'll just be hiding just the tracks that I had highlighted with the track name. Cool. So we're actually chugging along listening to the kick. So it's a 4/4 track. We heard it. It's a house track. So I really could just grab these first 4 kicks and say that that's the first 4 bars. But we're going to run into a problem. Let me show you what that problem is. If we create a click track and listen to the song currently, there was no information given about the actual tempo of the song. So we have no idea what the tempo is. And there are many ways that we could actually find the tempo. But the first thing I want to do is pull up a click track so you can actually hear that we don't have the correct tempo. Just because Pro Tools defaulted to 120 beats per minute doesn't mean that the song is actually 120 beats per minute. So we're going to have to figure out what the tempo is. So let's go up to our tracks menu, create click track. And since we had nothing but the beat going at the beginning of the song, this is really going to accentuate the fact that this song is probably definitely not 128 beats per minute. But since we're off to proving points, let's actually listen to the click as well as hearing the kick. And you'll hear right away that these are not the same tempo. Yeah, not at all. That's terrible. And in fact, without the grid being used, notice that the grid in Pro Tools, there's nothing sexy about the grid. It's just a set of lines that sit kind of in the background. You can see through your waveforms, and yeah, there's a grid there, but the grid is not correct. And the grid is going to be one of the most important features that you're going to utilize inside of any DAW. It just doesn't jump out and tell you that it's important, but it's major, major important. So what I would need to do is I need to figure out the tempo. So what I really need to do is figure out the first bar. So since we're in the tempo of 4/4, all I really need to do is basically use tab to transient feature. Your tab to transient feature is located right underneath here. Notice it's got a small arrow pointing to it, and it looks like the arrow is pointing to a waveform. With tab to transient engaged, notice if I put my selector tool in a track and I hit tab, it automatically tabs up to waveform transients. If I hit option tab, it goes backwards to the previous transient. If I hold Shift and hit Tab, it makes selections. So what I need to do is I need to hit return, so bring me back to the beginning, hold Shift and Tab, and I want to get the first drum transient. There's the first kick, the second kick, the third kick, and the fourth kick. So if I put this in loop playback, numeric key 4 and numeric keypad, notice you can toggle that on and off. And again, here's another reason why you want the numeric keypad. This turns on loop playback, so if I hit play, this should be a 1-bar loop. Cool, it's dead on, but you'll notice my click isn't dead on yet, and that's because the click, you can see here, the grid is slightly off. There's my selection, and there's where the grid for the next bar beat measure is at. In fact, let's put ourselves in bars and beats so you can see that. So if you take a look now at my selection and at Pro Tools grid, it's off. You can see where the grid currently goes through the middle of drum transients. That's a bad thing. That's not a good thing. Now, there's a feature inside of Pro Tools that'll take my selection and it'll let me tell Pro Tools, hey, Pro Tools, you got the wrong tempo here. Here's what the tempo should be. Is anybody familiar with what that is? And if you don't know, that's okay. It's a little bit early for me to be asking you these kind of questions because I haven't even really taught you this feature. Somebody said Beat Detective, and that's a really good one. You also have Tap Tempo, which Charles Yates said. That's a good way of doing it as well. But I can show you something that's a little bit more effective than both of those. Elastic Audio, Brandon, we could use that. That would start degrading the audio, but that's an excellent guess as well. The metronome, we could actually sit and pull up our transport, and since we have a metronome, we could adjust the tempo until we actually find the click. But quite honestly, that would take us about 20 minutes. And if you had a client in the room, they would look at you like you're crazy. If you're sitting there trying to listen to the song, listen to a metronome for about 20 minutes, it's going to drive them batty and they're going to leave the room. So let's don't do that. Let's show you the quickest and easiest and smoothest way, and that's called Identify Beat. Command I will give you Identify Beat. Now, I used a quick key. Let's show you where you can find it in the menu. You can find Identify Beat underneath your Events menu. You see here you have Identify Beat. Now, when the Identify Beat window comes up, again, there's nothing sexy about this window. It's basically a set of coordinates. It has from and to, so your start and your end location. And notice it says that it thinks that we're starting at bar 1, beat 1, which is actually fine. That's correct. But the end location shouldn't be bar 1, beat 4. If we have one measure selected, what should the end location actually be? I'm throwing this out to the class. What should that be? Now, somebody said 5. In fact, several of you are saying 5. Now, be careful. Remember, I have one measure selected. So what's right here after this one measure? Yeah, bar 2, beat 1. Now, it's okay. I know you guys were thinking to yourself this was 4 bars, but we're really dealing with one bar that has 4 kicks in it with a time signature of 4/4. So let's go in here. Let's put in bar 2. Now, when I hit OK, nothing's going to look magical. In fact, you're going to think nothing happened. But what I want you to pay attention to is this grid line is going to move itself over, and then we're going to get a very precise tempo here in our tempo field. So let's take a look. I hit OK. Sure enough, the grid bumps over, and it says here that this should be 123.0025 beats per minute. Well, I'm going to say here that I think that's a pretty precise tempo. And in fact, I really think that this should be 123 beats per minute, period. That small little anomaly that we have there, that could just be a little bit of the swing based off of the transients here. So let's go and change this to 123. To change it, I'm going to hold down Control. I'll click on this little icon that you see that's red. It'll give us a window here. Oops. Let's bring myself back to the beginning of the session. That way I don't have anything selected. Control. Well, I tell you what, let's do this. Let's undo, Command Z, what I just did, and let's just tell it this should be 123 beats per minute. So what did that do? That basically just made, if I put myself in grid mode, that made it work now in bars and beats. If I change my grid resolution here, you'll notice I can select individual hits now, and they're selecting the exact hits. Now, the way to really test this is let's go back and let's listen to the click track again. Dead on. It's perfect on. Couldn't be any better. Now, the way you really know if this works or not, though, is you want to take a look at the very end of the song. Here's where you would find out if it works all the way throughout the song. Because if not, it's going to slip away. Well, I can go in, I can start making selections, and just based off my selections, I can zoom into my selections here. I can see that looks pretty much dead on. But the way I'd really want to do it is actually just make a selection at a specific bar location, hit play, and listen to the metronome again. Let's get the click track turned up just a bit here. Okay, so I know it's dead on. Now notice how to actually figure that out. We listened to the beginning, which we knew it was on at the beginning, but the way you're really going to find out if it's on throughout the entire song is it will start slipping away if it's off. And if it starts slipping away, then going and listening at the very end of the song is going to determine, and we noticed just by making selections that it made 1 bar increments, that if I hit play, it's going to loop perfectly. Okay, so we know that this is all dead on. We've got the session locked up. Now what I need to do is I need to go find where the actual vocals are in the track and actually get those vocals into the session themselves. It doesn't sound like we have the actual vocals in the song so far. So I need to go look at these tracks that I had inactivated. So it's going to be any of these guys that you see italicized off to the side. You can see they're still inactive. So let's go ahead and figure out which one's which. I'm going to start off by actually just looking at the track names themselves. That's going to help me figure out which track is what. Well, notice here if you double click on any track, this will allow you to rename the track name. But another thing this allows you to do is if you hold down Command and use your arrow keys, notice it basically also gives me the full name so I can see it. So this is some kind of bass rumble that they were using. We may or may not want to use that later. We'll see. But I'm looking for the vocals. So if I hold down Command and use my arrow keys, there's the choir. So I definitely want that track. We'll come back to that. Hold bass. Not really worried about that. So I'm just holding Command and hitting my right key. Oh, there's Vox, Vox 2, and there's Vital. I'm going to want those definitely. Okay, so there's pretty much all the tracks. So let's take a look. Pardon me. Definitely know I want that. Vox and Vox 2, we know we're going to want these 2 tracks. So I'm just going to basically highlight these tracks' names. Pardon me, guys. I'm losing my voice tonight. We're going to say make these active. Oh, you know what I did? Somehow I hid them and made them inactive. Sorry about that, guys. Let's try that again. Excellent. There's the tracks that I was looking for. Now, I like to take my vocal tracks, and I like them to be at the very beginning of my session as well. So here's what we're going to do. Let's go get these tracks. Here's our choral track and the Vox tracks. Put them at the very top of my session. It's a little bit early for me to actually start getting into some of the organizational skills of Pro Tools, but I'm going to do it anyways, and I'll show you why. Since vocals are always going to be really important, anytime you're dealing with a song that has vocals, the vocals are going to be the goal, the main focus of the song, no matter what. If your song doesn't have vocals in it, it's going to be whatever the lead instrument is in the song itself. In this case, we're dealing with vocals, so I actually want to color these so that I will always know where these are at. And that way I can always get to them quick and easy. Now, I usually wait till week 3 or week 4 to show this off to you guys, but since it's the beginning of the week and I know we're going to have to figure out where these vocals go, I'm going to go ahead and deal with the vocals right here and now. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to color these. We're going to, underneath our window menu, you'll notice here we have color palette. Now, when our color palette comes up, I want to make sure that I'm checking off here that I want the actual tracks themselves to change color. And I like to make my vocals yellow. I like them yellow because then they really jump out. I can adjust the saturation if I want, or even the brightness. I typically like things kind of bright, but it just really helps me to see where those tracks are at. Now that I've got those tracks really pointed out as to where they are, now I can go and find the vocals in the tracks themselves. Now, I'm going to have to take a guess here as to where these vocals go, which I don't usually like to do. I like to know exactly where everything's at, but in this case, the artist didn't give us everything, so we kind of have to figure this out on our own. Looks like we have some lead vox here, and we've got some choral sounds here, and I have no way of knowing where these go in the song at all. I tell you what, I think I might actually have to go back and buy the original song. Let's see if I can still have all Beatport set up. I don't believe this is the original track. I believe we were dealing with Russ here, Russ Yalop. And I'm going to have to buy this real quick. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to figure out where to purchase the original track. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I think I'm just going to have to go to Beatport Music and actually find the track and purchase it. Okay, looks like here's the original song. So I found it. Now here's a good clue that I probably want to take a look at. We have times on here. Let's go find the actual time of these files. Switch over here to minutes and seconds. 6 minutes, 21 seconds. So we know it's got to be, can't be this one. It's probably going to be this one on top. Let me take a quick listen. All right, so I've got it in my little checkout bin. I'm going to go ahead and purchase the song now. So this is actually a good lesson because this is exactly the way I work in the real world. You've got to really have the original track in order to figure out where the parts are going to go. Sorry, guys, I wasn't expecting to actually have to get the original song, but that's okay. Well, I tell you what, for the sake of today's class, I'm going to have to actually get this file. I believe there is Beatport's somewhat complicated, and I haven't purchased for them in a while. And I believe I have a Beatport downloader application that I have to be using. Let's find this real quick. This is another reason why I actually was kind of steering you guys towards Indaba. It doesn't have as many steps as what you're seeing me have to go through now. And also, in listening to the vocal track, it didn't really seem like the track itself had very defined verses and chorus sections. Coolio. So this will be downloaded in a second. We'll import it. Yeah, my Keycaster actually is on. Somebody's asking about my Keycaster. It's there. For some reason, it doesn't show single key command sometimes, and option key commands sometimes don't show up either. By the way, the Keycaster that you guys see me using, we've asked you guys to use it on your assignments. In the event you're using Quickies, it just helps us. So if for some reason you don't have Keycaster working correctly, not a big deal. I'm not going to count you off for not using Keycaster. It just really helps us in the grading process. So again, if you're not using Keycaster on your screen capture assignments, I'm not going to count you off. Again, it's really just to kind of help us. That way, if you are Quick Key Clyde, you're using a bunch of the Quick Keys, it lets me see what it is you're using. Okay, so I should have the file here now inside of Beatport Music. There it is. We got it as an MP3. So we'll go back over to Pro Tools, and I'll import that, Shift-Command-I. We'll go back to my desktop, Beatport Music. There's the file. We're going to go ahead and copy this over into Pro Tools. It's going to take a second because it's an MP3, and it's got to upsample it to our now 24-bit WAV file, which is not a big deal. Tell it to convert. Tell it done. It's asking us, do we want to save it back in the audio files folder? Well, of course. Now, once it's done with the old rendering process, we'll be able to import this over into Pro Tools, and then we'll be able to use that as our guide track. Cool. Yeah, we'll import this as a new track. Sounds good. And let's call this original. Cool. So now we actually have a guide track for the entire song. So now we'll be able to figure out where the vocals actually go. Now, I would actually have to listen to the song to figure out exactly where the vocals are. So we'd have to solo this out. I'm just going to kind of give it a spot check. And interestingly enough, take a look at this, though. It throws it off a bit whenever it converts to an MP3. And in fact, you can see that, notice how it's got a little bit of dead air at the beginning of the song. And if we listen to the song, there's a little bit of an effect going into the original. There's that shh. So then you hear the kick drum. Well, that little shh is actually going to throw the tempo off if we were to listen to the track side by side. So I actually have to get rid of that little effect sound. So if I hold Shift and Tab and then hit Delete, now we should be at the very first kick drum. And you can see now the kicks line up on our grid. If I go look at the end of the track, it should line up at the end as well now too. That way we know that we have basically the same song locked up. And it looks like it's actually slightly off a little bit. So whenever I did that first edit at the very beginning, I need to actually leave a little bit of room. So let's pull this back out, put myself into slip mode. Now here's where I'm just kind of showing you guys some stuff, just kind of off the cuff kind of stuff. If we look at the tail end of the song now, and basically just trying to make sure the song lines up, and it's not going to be dead on, but I basically wanted to try and be as close as possible. So if that's the case, I'll show you guys a quick little trick here on how to get this to line up. And this is just something I've learned throughout the years. And I'm going to use this little feature called a sync point. And again, this is going to be kind of an advanced feature for what we're dealing with today, but I'm going to go ahead and teach it to you anyways. I'm going to tab up to this drum transient because I know that's the drum transient that I want to deal with. I'm going to create a sync point, which is command and comma. Now, the sync point you see there, what that sync point allows me to do is wherever I put my selector tool, if I were to hold now Shift and Option and then use the grabber, you'll notice this is now going to jump over to where the actual my current selector location is at. So then that'll allow me to reposition this file. And basically what I want to do with this file is I just want to move it slightly. I want this file, if we zoom in here, I want that file. Actually, that's not where I want that file. That's not the kick I want. I wanted it on this kick. So let's go ahead and delete that. Hold down Option, get rid of that sync point. Let's create a new sync point. The sync point we want to create, we'll put ourselves in the slip mode, Shift and tab over to it. To create a sync point, it's Command, comma, put ourselves back into grid mode. And where I really want to be, check this out. This gets really minutia, but this gets really, really important as well. I want to be exactly at this location. So that's why I created a sync point. So if now I hold Shift and Control, it's going to move this over, bada bing, bada boom. And what I basically just did is I just lined up the entire song based off of the grid. So if we go back to the original here, I can now pull out and get a little bit of that effect there before we hear the kick drop. And now if I go back to the end of the song and I pick a loop spot, something like, oh, I don't know, this, it should be dead on. And it's dead on. So now the reason why this whole grid stuff is so important, folks, take a look at this. Here's where it gets really, really crafty. Now I have basically, if we move back here, if I go back to bars and beats, I should have a 2-bar selection, and I do. But now that I have their song originally gridded out, watch what I can do here. This gets really interesting. I can basically take their performance, change my grid, and start editing away, and I can actually replay their pattern, but slightly different. So let's do a double kick at the beginning. And then how about a little snare roll happening right here? So we'll create a roll effect. I'll consolidate it. I'll even create a fade in. And so now if we go back and we listen to that 2 bars, I just basically hijacked their beat and made it slightly my own. Now, the way I did that, somebody's asking, hey, how'd you do that? Basically, the way I did that was first by having the grid corrected. Once the grid is corrected, notice that if I put myself in a 16th notes, I can take little pieces of their drums, and they select really easily in grid mode now. So that we got a hi-hat there. That was not an actual snare, so let's find a snare. Well, actually, they're using that little hit there as a snare, and all that is a closed hat. But basically, now I can hijack. I can have their first drum kick. That has a little bit of the bass in it as well, but you'll notice if I I'll just duplicate that, Command D, and that basically just created a double kick pattern. And then when I wanted to create that little drum roll, what I basically did is I took that little, well, it should be a snare, but they used a closed hat, and I just duplicated it several times. And then to get that rolled effect, I just consolidated it, Shift Option 3, and then here, this will make it kind of sound like a delay because we'll have it fade out this time. So basically, once you have the grid corrected, you can take apart someone's music and put it back together in a way that you would never have heard it been performed before. So yeah, the grid itself, while I said there's nothing sexy about the grid, there is something very sexy about the grid, and that is that once you have the grid locked up, you can actually take apart someone's music and put it back together in a way that they'd never even originally performed it. And now you see we also have things locked up here at the beginning of the song. So if I wanted to go from bar 2 and only have a 1-bar loop, all right, cool. So for today, basically, I wanted to basically show you guys how to get the files over from the website, whatever site you're going to use. I wanted to show you guys where to get these files. Now, there's another thing I haven't showed you guys yet that I think you guys will enjoy, and that is we switch back over here and we take a look at your Avid account. Now, every one of us should have an Avid account. You've all signed up and registered your software and your hardware, so I want you to go ahead and log into your account because I'm going to show you 8.5 gigs worth of loop libraries that you can use for this project. So we'll go ahead and I'll log into my account. Now, once you get to this page here, you want to look under My Products, and you want to go to View My Product Details. Now, under View My Product Details, you want to look at the current version of Pro Tools that you're utilizing. Now, my internet connection is going to be a little bit slower because I'm streaming here, as well as you guys get to see my screen, so it's going to be a little bit slower on my end. If we go to, this is my current version of Pro Tools. I'm using Pro Tools 10. By the way, Pro Tools 11 is not supported in this course yet, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Reason number one, I don't have it. So if you send me a Pro Tools 11 session, chances are I'm not going to be able to open it up, and even if I can open it up, I'm not going to be able to hear any of your plugins because there's a new plugin type. That's the second reason why we're not using Pro Tools 11 yet, is that they now are using Avid's Audio Engine, or AAX plugins, and unless I have that exact AAX plugin, I'm not going to be able to hear it. So just be aware that Pro Tools 11 is not supported. So just go back and install Pro Tools 10. Pro Tools 10 can be installed right next to Pro Tools 11. You won't have any issues, but just be aware it's not currently supported in this program. Now, I look under my version of Pro Tools here where it says Downloads. Open up where it says Downloads. And down here at the bottom, any of these that say Big Fish Dance Loops, you want to download these. You want to download these one at a time, though, because if you try to download them all at once, you're going to get a weird error. I've experienced that error, and I've had students tell me that as well. So just download them one at a time. But then you'll have 8.5 gigs worth of loop library, and let me show you what I've done with those. And we're going to use these in this project as well. So let me quickly hide Pro Tools. Now, in my music folder here, I showed you that I have an artist remix files. I also have a Pro Tools sessions folder, and then I also have a sounds and samples. Here are all the sounds and samples that you saw me just refer to. So here underneath Avid Materials, if I Command I and show you the file size here, you're dealing with over 8.5 gigs worth of loop libraries here that I want you to be able to have and use. They're free. You've already got your software registered, so you might as well use them. And this way, you and I are going to be using the same materials. So here, underneath dance, DJ, or hip hop, or jazz, or rock, you can see there's all these different categories of different instruments that you're going to use. So while we haven't actually got a chance to use these, there's one other thing I wanted to show you guys today that we haven't got a chance to do, and that's how to create markers throughout your session. So to do this, what I really want to do is I want to show you the entire song here and start creating some markers. Now, let me undo any of the edits that I've done. Let's take a look at this file here. Option F. Anytime you actually have a very small selection, if you use Option F, it'll center that selection. So if I select this file while double-clicking and use Option F, it's going to zoom out and show me the length of that file. So this is that original file that we were utilizing. And remember, we said that this other song, that these files didn't exactly line up. And we got them pretty close. But there you go. So I want to show you how to use memory locations and why you would use memory locations. In this song here, I can see, just by looking at the song, I can already see there are sections to the song just by looking at the waveform. I can tell just by looking at this that from there to there, that's going to be an intro. That's going to be an intro because I can tell the waveform change. You can see it gets slightly thicker here. So if I had to bet money, I would say this is a DJ intro. And from there to there, it's going to be nothing but a beat. And then from here, our bass line picks up. It looks like we have a small little interlude or a break of some sort. then it looks like our verses will probably kick in here. We'll probably go verse, chorus, uh, verse, verse, chorus. You know the whole deal. And it looks like we've got a couple breaks as well. So now I want to be able to identify these sections to the song. Well, one way I could do this, since I already have the tempo locked up, is I could just tell Pro Tools, look, I'm hitting my backslash key, and look what's happening at the very top of my screen. This is called the event edit area. It gives me my start, my end, and my length. So if I want to have 8 bars selected, I'll go in and I'll say, hey, I want 8 bars selected. So what this does for me, if we zoom in, oops, wrong key there, sorry about that, Option F, it shows us that from here to here, this should be a good loop of 8 bars. We're going to go ahead and listen to it. I'm only doing this to prove a point. Okay, we can see there that the song itself starts to go into a new section. So here would be an instance where I want to create memory locations or markers that show me how the actual song is laid out. This is going to be super helpful later on in the process of creating this song, and you guys are going to be utilizing this in your next screen capture. So what a better time to show it to you. To create a memory location while Pro Tools is playing along, you just simply hit enter. So notice I turned the volume down so you guys don't have to hear Pro Tools. And I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to talk to you for a second. And then I'm going to realize, oh, wait a minute, I've been talking for a little bit, and I really meant to make the location back where I originally hit it. But that's okay. Wherever I initially hit enter, which, by the way, I'm hitting enter on the full numeric keypad. Wherever I originally hit enter serves as the place of where the memory location is made. You can make these really quickly just by hitting enter twice. And you can see we've just made a bunch of memory locations. Now, to pull up the memory locations window, Command 5, notice we have all these memory locations. If I click on them, it takes me immediately, even though Pro Tools is playing back, it takes me to those memory locations, which can be really helpful and useful. In a moment, we're going to actually end up stenciling out the intro of the track, the first verse, the chorus, and these things are going to help us in creating our remix, because then we'll have a good skeleton of how the track is arranged. And that'll allow us to then, since we have the grid already locked down, it'll allow us to then go in and fill in those sections with performances that we're going to create on our own. Now, so far, it seems really simple. All we've done is imported the files, we've corrected the tempo, and now we're creating memory locations. Now, you saw us create them, but how do we delete them? Well, there's a couple different ways. You can grab a memory location, drag it down. Notice it turns into a little trash can. So if you let go, it's going to delete it. You can grab it and drag it up. It turns into a trash can. That way you can delete it. You can highlight over them and then hit delete. It'll delete them. You can hold the option and click on it, and it'll delete a memory location. So there's multiple ways of deleting a memory location. You can also create a memory location by using this little plus icon. That little plus icon basically does the same thing. Now, with memory locations, you can also store properties. For instance, let's go ahead and let's create a memory location here. And let's ask it to save the track show heights, the track heights, and we'll say OK. And then for our next memory location, let's only show the original. Let's create another one that has the same properties. And notice when we click between these two memory locations, it's saving those zoom settings and the track show hides. So memory locations can actually be really beneficial for production in showing you different stages or showing you different tracks that you would like to view as well. Todd actually had a good question concerning the loops. So going back to the loops for just a second, the loops are the same one that came with the DVDs. So that's actually a quicker way of getting those loops that you just saw me go to. The loops that I went back and showed you guys inside of your Avid account, that's these Big Fish loops. They also come on a DVD that came with your Pro Tools. And that's actually probably the quicker way than having to download them from their site. So if you have that DVD, then I would just go ahead and download them that way. And again, I would just create a folder inside of your music folder, call it Sounds and Samples, and make a new folder. It's called Avid Materials, and put all of those inside of there. And it'll be good to go. Back to memory locations. So within a memory location, you can store different general properties. We can also make a memory location that has a selection. We'll actually zoom into our selection, create another memory location. Instead of it being a marker, we'll tell it it'll be a selection-based memory location. So now if we click on location 1, location 2, location 3, location 4, you can see we have all those different properties stored within a memory location. You can also delete memory locations from within the memory location window. If you hold down Option, notice the pencil and the pencil tool in its direction. The pencil tool's head is pointed up, the eraser is pointed down as though you were going to erase. So in this case, if I click on memory location 2, it's going to erase memory location 2. Oops, actually it's going to be where the actual eraser head is at. So set it there where the eraser head is on 2, it deletes 2. Now let's say I wanted to update memory location 4 with new tracks and new track sizes. So maybe we're just going to show, oh, I don't know, every other track. Doesn't really matter. Maybe we're going to make some of these tracks miniature. And maybe I don't want it to be a selection-based memory locations. We'll hold Control. Notice Control has the pencil tool's head in the writing position, which will allow you to update that memory location. You'll click on the memory location. You can choose to make it a marker select instead of a selection-based. It will save the track show hides and the track heights. And now we go to memory location 1 versus memory location 2. Let's update memory location 1 as well. That way we'll see a drastic change. So with memory location 1, let's hide all tracks except for, oh, I don't know, some other random tracks. We'll make them a little bit larger. Doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead and update it. Cool. We update the location. Now if we go from 1 to 2, you can see we have different tracks showing and different track heights. All right. Well, it's been a good class so far. There's been some excellent questions, but it's time to really turn it over. I'm sure there's going to be some questions that I missed as we were going throughout this evening's session. So let me turn this over to you. How about some questions? No. The assignment that you guys are seeing today, this is really dealing with your final project and getting up and started with your final project. So this will be due the very last Sunday of week 4. You're probably thinking it's a little bit early to start working on this now, but there's a lot of steps to getting started. And getting started correctly is going to be one of the most important parts to this final project. First, you want to go find an artist. Once you found the good artist or whatever song it is you want to work on for the month, then you're going to need to import the file or download the files and import them into Pro Tools. After importing them into Pro Tools, you're going to have to figure out the tempo of the song and get your grid lined up. After that, then we're going to start importing some of the loop libraries you just saw me use. We didn't really have time to do that today, but you want to use memory locations and stencil out the arrangement of the song itself, and then we're going to start using and applying those loops. Julio asked, can you use any samples you own? Absolutely. A couple other questions here I might have missed. Someone asked, are those the same loops? Yep, the same loops that are on the discs. Kiana asked about FSO and the file size being too large for your screen captures. That's okay. That's why we gave you a secondary way of getting that information to us. Just make sure you guys do this well in advance so you're not missing the deadline, because you may have to actually upload your files to Dropbox and send us a downloadable link on a text doc and submit that to FSO. But if that's the case, you need to do this well in advance and not within the last half hour of Sunday. Yeah, guys asking you, so we're going to replace everything but the vocals. Yeah, that's the goal. That's the absolute goal. In fact, one of the first things we're going to get rid of next week is going to be the percussion, and we're going to start with brand new percussion. We can change the vocals if we want, absolutely. If I was going to change them, I'd probably do some edits to them. But yeah, you're more than welcome to change the vocals around or do any kind of creative editing. I want you guys to be as creative as possible, so I'm just kind of giving you some guidelines to go off of. You're not going to probably do your project exactly the way you're watching me. I'm just giving you guys a stepping off point. Yeah, Guy, I'm talking about replacing everything. The only thing that's going to remain is going to be the vocals. Brandon asked a very good question. He asked, "Is matching?" Let me go back a couple of extra questions here. Is matching the tempo of the original requirement, or can we stretch and shrink the samples? Well, if you're stretching the entire song, that's going to take a lot of extra work. That would mean you'd have to basically cut up the song in 1 bar chunks and then stretch those 1 bar chunks one by one to whatever your new tempo is. It's doable. It's not very fun to do. Many times it is going to be necessary if you're trying to change a song from one genre to the next. In other words, if it's a hip hop song and you want it to be a house song, it's kind of a stretch, but you could do it. Typically, if you're going to time stretch, you want to stay away from time stretching any more than 10%. Otherwise, it's going to really degrade the audio. Awesome. So far, the questions have been very good. We still have a couple minutes of class left. Yeah, Michael, I tell you what, if you want, I'm going to go ahead and launch my chat. That way, if you want to chat with me now, you can. I'm going to pull my chat window off to the side as well. I have 2 screens running, and that way you won't actually see any chats that are going on. That way, if you want to have a private chat with me, that's fine. Rochelle, there should be a good KeyCaster link in the assignment itself, the week 1's assignment, and you should be able to still go back and get to that assignment. I also just typed in my iChat information. That way, if you guys need to get in touch with me, that's fine. I'll probably be up for maybe 20, 30 minutes after class. That way, if you have something personal, that's fine. You can hit me up, and we can answer those questions. So, any last minute questions before we wrap up for class? Hey, Michael, not a problem. Not a sweat. I already see you up on iChat, so if you got 10 minutes, we could do it now, or if you want to do it tomorrow, that's fine. I won't be available till the afternoon, though, so you won't see my iChat up until 1 in the afternoon. Joel, you're anything that'll give you the entire session files, like you would get from Indaba, full stems. So any materials. In fact, I have another site here I could give to you guys that if I really couldn't vouch for what's going on with this other site though, because I haven't used it a bunch, but I do know that we also have this available. Let me see if I can find it real quick for you. I believe I put it underneath Full Sail. Maybe it's not there. Now, I can't really vouch for the files. I don't know whether they're giving you full stems here, but here is another reference site that will give you stems for tracks. And again, if you're using a rock tune, it's not going to line up to grid because a rock song is going to actually, the tempo is going to vary throughout the song. So I would highly recommend you pick a dance track. But if you want to do a rock song, that's a whole nother ball game. You're going to run into a lot of tempo issues, which I don't mind helping you out with. You'll just have to contact me on a one-on-one basis. Derek's asking, is last week's Pro Tools assignment going to affect this week's upcoming assignment? No, not at all. You guys shall be good to go. Well, guys, it looks like some of the questions are winding down. Does anybody have any last-minute questions before I sign off? I've got a couple students that are already on to iChat, and so I'll probably end up moving over and talking with these guys for a couple minutes. Are there any other last-minute questions before we wrap for this evening's class? All right, guys, I appreciate you coming out and hanging out. We'll see you back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a good evening. Take care.